Today we're going to talk about how to solve percent problems using proportions. And so a percent proportion, all right, is a type of proportion where you can solve three types of problems. All right, and first of which, you could find part of something in number form. You can find the total of something in number form, or you can find the percent of something. So obviously that would be your percent form. All right, so let's go ahead and do a couple of examples. All right, so let's say that for the first one I have 7 out of 25 students earned A's. So let's find out what percent earned A's. All right, so the easiest thing to do is always set up your ratios in proportion form first. All right, and we know that we always have part over the whole, and the two ratios we're going to set up, the first one would be a percent ratio. So if we set that up with our percent symbol, we know percent's always based out of 100, so 100 is always going to be in that denominator. And our second ratio will deal with the numbers. So these would be your numbers, again, part over the whole. So if we go back to our question, we look, it says 7 out of 25 students earned A. What percent earned an A? So the missing value is the percent. That's what we're looking for. And we know that 7 was part out of the 25, which was the whole. So now that we've written our proportion, we can solve using our cross products. So if we do 25 times n is going to equal 7 times 100. So 25n equals 700. And then we simplify by dividing by 25. So n would be equal to 28% earned A's. All right. So in this problem, our missing value was the percent. All right. Now, let's talk about another problem. Let's say that we visited the pound. All right. So we saw 88 dogs. All right. And about 62% were mutts. So the question would say, how many were mutts? We know what the percentage is, but we don't know exactly what number. So how many out of the 88 were actually mutts? So again, we're going to set up our proportion with our percent and our 100 in the denominator, and the right ratio deals with the numbers. So they're giving us the 62% here in the question, so it has to go in that first ratio. And it says we saw 88 dogs, and 88 was the total number of dogs, so that number goes in the denominator, and n is the 62% that we're looking for. All right, so again, we set up our cross product, so 100n equals 62 times 88. And 62 times 88 comes out to 5,456. When we divide by 100, we get n equals 54.56. So we would say about 55 dogs were mutts. Okay, so far in the first problem, we were looking for the percent. Second one, we were looking for the part of the whole. Let's try another problem next. So let's say that we have, whoops, let's fix that. The swim team has 28 girls. Which was 65% of the team. So how many people in all were on the team? So again, we will set up our, let's do our little squiggly to separate our work here. All right. So let's set up our ratios in proportion form. So we're going to have our percent with the 100 in the denominator, and we'll put our number ratio over on the right. And so it says the swim team has 28 girls, which was 65% of the team. So we know our 65% goes there. 28 is only part of the team. It's also the 65%. So we know that's in the numerator. And it's our total number. That's our missing value here. All right. So if we set up our cross products, we would have 65n equals 28 times 100. 65 equals 2800. We'll divide both sides by 65. And n equals 43.07. So we would say about 43 people make up the swim team. All right. So let's just look back again. In this problem, we were able to find out the total number. In the dog problem, we were able to find out part of the total. And in our first problem about students earning A's, we were able to find out the percent. So using a percent proportion, these are three different types of problems, and we can find the value for. There's another style of question with percent proportions where we don't really have a word problem. It's more or less more direct. We might see something where it says, what percent of 30 is 80? So again, we can set up our ratios with our labels. So what percent of 30 is 80? Well, one of the key words in this setup is the word of. And in this setup, we can put the word of down here in our denominator. And most of the time, the number that follows the word of is also the number that would go down here in the denominator. So we know that 30 would be down here in the denominator. And here it says what percent? Well, what percent is our missing value, n? And so we know that our percent is the missing value. So 80 is the number that would have to go here in the denominator. So notice in our second ratio, the numerator is greater than the denominator. So our answer over here means our percent has to be greater than 100. So let's go ahead and write the equation using cross products. So 30 times n equals 80 times 100. So 30n equals 8,000. And when we divide both sides by 30, n is going to equal 266.6 repeating. So if I was to put 266.6 up here, does that make sense? Yes, 266 is to 100 as 80 is to 30. All right, let's try another one. What if we have 65% of what number is 20? All right. Again, let's set up our skeleton. And 65%, obviously, that has to go here. Here's that word of. And the terms that follow of, it says what number. that would be your missing value. So putting the word of here means that n is the value in the denominator, and is 20 is going to be your numerator. So again, we write our cross products. 65n equals 100 times 20. 65n equals 2,000. And when we divide both sides by 65, n is going to equal 30.77. And if we plug this in here, does it make sense? 65 is to 100 as 20 is to 30. Pretty much that's a 2 to a 3 ratio, so we know we're on the right track. All right, let's try another one. Number 3. 52%, all right, of 80 is what number? Right. So set up our ratios in proportion form, which sometimes I call the skeleton. And again, here's our 52% has to go in the left ratio. The word of, down here in the denominator, 80 follows the word of, so 80 is the number in the denominator. And what's left here is our n, where n would be our numerator on the number ratio. So again, 100n equals 52 times 80. So 100n equals 4,160. And when we divide both sides by 100, n equals 41.6. And so if we plug this in up here, 41 is about half of 80, and 52 is about half of 100. So we are good to go on those ratios. So just to review, for this third question here, we were looking for part of the whole. And the second one, we were looking for the total. And in the first one here, we were looking for the percent. So again, these percent proportions are a great way to find those types of values for lots of different problems. Thanks for checking in.